Last lesson we looked at all of prehistory. So we looked at the three parts of the Stone Age, we looked at the Bronze Age, and then we looked at the Iron Age. And we looked at timelines and how those things joined together. In particular, we used houses and how houses changed over time to put things in order and give us an image in our head. Today, we're going to look a little bit more closely at the change between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, because the Iron Age is going to be our main topic. So we're going to learn to address questions about change, similarity, and difference. Address just means answer. Look at questions. What things have changed? What things are similar? So what things are almost the same? And difference. Difference and change are a similar thing. If things change, they create difference. So we're going to be looking at this bit of our timeline. In particular, we're going to be comparing the very beginning of the Bronze Age with the Iron Age. So, what happened when the Bronze Age became the Iron Age? Well, it's really quite hard to say. We know when the Iron Age finished, when it became the Romans, because the Romans kept records. We know that at one certain point in time, a bunch of Romans turned up in Britain, conquered it, and it became Roman Britain. Now, it took them a few years to work their way up from the bottom of Britain, and things had changed, but we have an end date, and we know what caused it. The change from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, that's a bit harder to tell. In fact, even knowing when the Bronze Age started is tricky, because it didn't just sort of start. You have the Neolithic, the end of the Stone Age, kind of just merged into the Bronze Age at different points in different times on our island. It didn't all happen at once. It's also very hard as a historian or as a prehistorian to look at ancient history or prehistory, sorry, and realise why things change. A new house style might appear, or a new language might appear, or new ways of doing things might appear. But it's very hard to tell whether that's new people turning up and taking over, or whether it's an idea, whether somebody told somebody, and it's the same bunch of people, but they've been told a new idea, or whether they just worked out that new idea for themselves. With the Bronze Age, when the Bronze Age started, it looked like it is people turning up, and those people are known as the beaker culture. Because we don't know much about them, but we know they made beakers, and we can track them as they moved across Europe and into Britain by when their beaker style, their style of making these cups, appeared. They would never have called themselves the beaker culture. We're naming them after the cups that we find. The Celts, on the other hand, the Iron Age people, well, it doesn't look like they are a people. It looks like it's a language, and maybe that language spread, but it's actually the same people that were there before. They're just learning new things, new ways of doing things, and in one case, learning a new language. We don't know. There's no way of knowing for sure. We can't go back and ask them, and it's really, really hard to do medical things on the remains that we find to work out where these people came from. So, all we know is at some point, the Bronze Age slowly merged into the Iron Age. So we're going to look at the differences and similarities between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. What changed, what stayed the same, and what changed. And we're going to do that with two pictures from this brilliant book called A Street Through Time. Now, this first picture is labelled First Farmers, 2000 BC. Now, that is the very, very end of the Neolithic, the very beginning of the Bronze Age. So it's kind of Bronze Age, but quite early, and it doesn't look that much different to the end of the Neolithic. And then we're going to compare that to proper Iron Age, 200 years into the Iron Age, but still a good 400, so a good 500 and something years before Roman Britain starts. So we need to look at these pictures. We need to look at them in lots of detail. So I'll give you another copy of these so that you can actually zoom in and look closer than we can in this video. We're going to look at the first one, we're going to look at the second one, and then you're going to decide what's the same and what's different. So here's our Bronze Age. That's right, our Bronze Age village. So let's zoom in on the village. Let's read the words to begin with. It says more than 8,000 years have passed and people have learned how to grow crops and keep animals. That's from the last picture. They've also developed new skills such as making pottery, weaving cloth and metalworking. The site by the river is now a permanent settlement with huts, so this has moved on from those hunter-gatherers we talked about. So, 1. These people are using river clay to make pots for the settlement. So somewhere, here they are here. These people here. These people are making pots out of clay and they've built a little pottery kiln, which is like an oven. 2. Fire is a great danger in wooden huts with thatched roofs. It can spread quickly. So they're saying in here, there's fire. And if it starts to spread, someone's throwing water on the fire to put it out. 3. People have started to keep cattle, pigs, sheep and goats for milk and meat. So these Bronze Age people are farmers. Now where's the next one? Number 4. Clothes are now made from wool and cloth as well as leather and fur. Women spin, weave and sew. There's number 4. Here they are. There's somebody weaving and somebody sewing. So these clothes now aren't just animal hides kind of thrown over your body. They're properly sewn things. They're woven material, so wool and things like that. Let's move across. Several villages have joined together to build a stone circle to honour the gods. How many stones are there? That's up here. A bit like Stonehenge. They've drawn a stone, not drawn, they've created a stone circle. Now that's interesting because it takes a lot of people to move those stones. They're very heavy. This one village couldn't have made that on their own. So this village has had to join together with other villages and actually do something together, work together to make something. And that's an important part of Bronze Age. People are starting to organise not just one family, not just one village, but people are starting to work together in larger groups. Where have we got to? A wooden palisade around the village protects people from wild animals. That's this wooden wall that goes around the outside. This is called a palisade. It's like a fence, basically. But notice that it's to keep out wild animals. This is not a castle wall. This is not to protect them from other warriors. This is the Bronze Age. This is a time when there's not a huge number of people, but there's an awful lot of land. People only really fight each other when they have to. People don't really like fighting each other. Nobody wants to go to war. You tend to fight each other when you need something that they've got. In this Bronze Age, there's lots of land. There's no need to go and fight another village and risk getting hurt. You just use different pieces of land. So this wall isn't to protect the people from other villages, it's to protect the people from wild animals. And if I remember properly, yep, there's somebody chasing a wolf off over there. Wheat and barley are grown in fields. The crops are cut with a sickle made from a sharp piece of flint. So they're still using wood. It's not all about the bronze, but here, there's some fields at the back here where people are growing wheat and things like that. And then finally, the village dead are buried in a barrow, which is a grave covered by a mound. That's up here. Whoops. Here's the barrow. It's a large grave where all the dead people from the village would be buried in one place. There's a little door on the end for getting into it. Now, other things that we can see as we look around here. Let's look at the houses. The houses are, well, they're reasonably big, but let's look at, looking at this house here with this lady. Let's get rid of all of my annotations so far. Clear all pen markings. And let's look at this house here. It's one room. It's not massive. It's got enough space to have a few people in, but it's not like there's beds and tables and all sorts of furniture here. These are very simple houses. Compared to the tents that came before them, they're amazing, but they're very simple houses. There's also boats and people are fishing. And the clothes that people are wearing, they're still very earthy colours. They're the colours of the things that they would have used to make them. Nothing here has been dyed or made into a different colour. And notice how the animals pretty much live with them. We've got dogs, goats, pigs, ducks or geese probably, cows. They're all living in the village where they can be protected from wild animals by that palisade wall. So, there's our look at the Bronze Age. Let's have a look at the Iron Age now and see how things have changed. Well, hundreds of years have passed. People have now found out how to smelt iron to make better tools and weapons. The village has prospered, but there are battles with neighbouring tribes who are fierce rivals. Now, at this point, there's a lot more people and a lot less land, and they're now starting to fight over things. So that's a very important difference between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. I'm not saying nobody fought in the Bronze Age, but you did a lot more fighting in the Iron Age, a lot riskier. Now, number 1. A potter has built his kiln away from his house because of the risk of fire. So this pottery kiln looks similar to the Bronze Age. It's not actually that different, but he's making more complicated pots with it. 2. As a foreign trader. Now this is interesting. This is a man from another place who's come presumably by boat, and he's trading things, he's swapping things that he's got with things that the Celts had. Now, there's evidence of traders, Phoenician traders, coming all the way from the Mediterranean, all the way from sort of places near Israel and the north of Africa, which is an incredibly long way that they've travelled to get here because they want the things that are in this country. Now, this island had lots of tin and lots of things that were worth trading. So here they are trading foreign things from the south of Europe and the north of Africa and trading them for things that the Celts might have. 3. These 3 wooden statues have been set up to honour the gods. Now, here we are at a sacred grove. Notice how now the religious place isn't that stone circle up on the hill, it's a space in amongst the trees where they've set up 3 sort of statues. That's their version of a church. The stone circle is still there, nobody knocked it down, but it's not new, it's not used, it's not important to them anymore. Priests offer captured enemy weapons to the gods by throwing them into the river. So here are some priests, some druids, throwing captured enemy weapons into the river. And nowadays we still find the remains of weapons buried in the bottom of rivers because they sink to the bottom of the river. They get covered up by the silt, the mud, and they kind of get preserved there. What's interesting here is that it's about weapons, it's about warriors. There's warriors in the background over here. There's stuff to do with weapons. There's a tribal chief who's wearing a helmet. There's chariots. There's swords. There's things all around. This is a lot more about fighting. Notice how this palisade wall around the edge is much stronger. It's got spiked tops to it now. There's a gate with guards. This is looking more like a castle wall than it's looking like something just to keep animals out. This is keeping out rival warriors, other warriors. 4. The chief has built a stronghold called a fort on a hill. It's made of wood. Spot 2 other monuments in the hills from earlier times. Here's his hill fort. Now here's an interesting thing. Before, when villagers got together, they used their efforts to build things like that Stonehenge up there, or to build their barrows. Now they're using their time and their effort to build, to clear land, more land for farming, and to build these forts. This fort has got these hills. We'll do a lesson on hill forts. But this hill isn't natural, it's not bumpy like that normally. They've made ditches and built ridges and things to make themselves this large defendable fort. And they've built 2 lines of walls all around the fort, so that if enemy are attacking and the little walls around their village aren't enough, they can all run up to the fort and hide in the fort. Okay, where have we got to? Had to stop for a second and go and sort something out. Okay, after the warriors, the priests and the blacksmiths are the most important men in the village. So warriors are important, the man who makes the weapons and makes the tools for them are important, and the priests are important. Little boats called coracles are made out of sticks and animal skin, so there's different types of boats here. And to help people farm more efficiently, a more efficient plough has been invented with an iron ploughshare. So here, The holes being dug in the ground are not being dug by just a person with a stone axe type tool. We've now got these oxen, these cows, pulling a big wooden piece of equipment with a big metal blade on the bottom of it, which is cutting big holes across the ground, which they can then put their seeds in and cover up. Farming's getting better. Notice how the barrow here is called an ancient barrow, because that's not how the Celts do their burials anymore. Anything else that we can see that's important? The houses, look at the size of that house compared to the last one. It's small compared to our houses, but it's much, much bigger. And can we see how like little walls have been built around the outside? It's not split the whole house up, but it splits off pieces, and they could hang cloths and cut bits off. So if people needed privacy, they could. We've still got the fire in the middle, which is now a bit further away from the wall, so hopefully less of a fire hazard, where the cooking can happen. But there's little bits around the edge that can be like little bedrooms and things like that. And they're hanging their belongings up on the roofs up here. And it's not just the chief's house that's big like this. They are mostly quite large houses with a hut over here for storing the food. Notice how this hut has got a gap, this hut here. Got a gap underneath it and a little ladder. That means if you take the ladder away, you can stop rats and foxes and things getting inside it and stealing the food and eating the food. Okay, Bronze Age to Iron Age. So, comparing. What you now need to do is do some comparisons for me. So, what's new? What's old? What's different? Remember, just because it's still there doesn't mean that it's used. So that stone circle that's still there in the Iron Age times is not an Iron Age way of doing things. So I suggest that you draw yourself a chart in your book. It's going to need to have 3 bits to it. And we're going to have a section for the Bronze Age, a section for the Iron Age, and a section for both, or at least similar. So the first thing you'll do is you'll look for monuments. Monuments are things that they've built to impress the gods, big impressive things, monumental things, large things. So what can you see in the Bronze Age? It's only in the Bronze Age, and you'll write it there. If you can see it and it's only in the Iron Age, you write it there. If it's in both, you write it here. So in the Bronze Age, you might put Stone Circle. In the Iron Age, you might put Hill Fort. Both, well, I couldn't see much they both used. Defences. What can you see in the Bronze Age? What can you see in the Iron Age? What's in both? Well, you might put palisade walls are in both. But in just the Iron Age, you might put gatehouse, fort, warriors. And is there anything you can see in the Bronze Age that was only for defence? I doubt it, because there's less there. Then you'll look at farming. So what can you see that's farming like in the Bronze Age? What can you see that's like farming in the Iron Age? What can you see that's farming that's in both? Look at the houses. What are the houses like in the Bronze Age? What are the houses like in the Iron Age? And what are houses like? Is there anything about the houses that's the same in both? Look at the people themselves. What are their clothes like? What are Bronze Age clothes like? What are Iron Age clothes like? Is there something that they're both wearing? The size of things. So for all of these things, that kind of applies to all of them. Are there certain things that are the same but bigger? And then lastly, I put others. If there's anything else that you notice in the Bronze Age, you can write that. Anything else you notice in the Iron Age, you can write it. And anything else that's in both. What I'll do is I'll produce a little sheet which you can print out if you've got a printer. And if not, you can draw it in your book where you can write your answers into this.